So if we think back to what was the original reason that we had Desert Shield, Desert Storm? What was our main mission, our main objective?
To get Saddam out of Kuwait.
To get Saddam out of Kuwait. So when I was talking about this with a buddy of mine last week. So when I'm looking at this and I see the border of Saudi Arabia and Iraq, and then I see where Kuwait is, I'm looking at this and we're discussing it, and I understand the whole concept of the left hook, but I'm thinking to myself, did we really need, if our mission was to remove the Iraqis out of Kuwait, what need did we actually have to go into Iraq itself? And so we were discussing it, and if you had all your armor, backed by your light infantry up along the Saudi Arabian border along Iraq, which we did to go across the border. And they, after a 30-day bombardment by naval and air, they didn't want to fight anyway. There were a few small elements, and like we had Colonel Hancock on talking about up north where his unit from the 101st got into, a hell of a battle there. But if we would have stayed on the border, maybe even pushed in a couple miles, and we would have pushed in from the south and pushed the Iraqis back into Iraq. And our main mission, as Hector will probably recall, was to push them to the Euphrates, and then we had to stop. And it was always explained to me that it was better just to leave Saddam in control and let him rule over his own people. So all that being said, I never understood I shouldn't say what business, but that's the term I'm going to use is what business did we have actually going into Iraq, if that was our mission, if we weren't taking over the country. And if we had done that, and we had stayed our ground on the border of Saudi Arabia and Iraq, think about the different, what we'll call side effects that we may or may not be suffering from today. Would we have had to ingest PB pills? Would we have been exposed to ionizing and burning vehicles and equipment from DE rounds? We would never have come across Khamisiyah. We would have never had the explosions or the 100,000 plus exposed to sarin and cyclosarin. We've talked about the highway of death on here a couple times. We wouldn't have had the loss of innocent life. So when I think about it, and more of a containment strategy instead of an invasion strategy, and I think everybody knows. Everybody came home with the Kuwait Liberation Medal. Everybody got that award. I think everybody now, as we're older and wiser, and we see what's currently going on now, we know that we were there to protect the oil, the black gold, the world economy. I'm very proud of my service. I'm proud of what we did, but I wish somewhere we would have got maybe an oil well medal as well, because that's what we were really there for. Honestly. And so
would it have a little pumper like down in Texas?
Yeah. So that's just kind of my thinking, and again, nothing to take away from what we did in Schwarzkopf's left hook. I mean, it was brilliant. And it worked. Overwhelming force, destroy the enemy, and we did that. But would we have really had to invade Iraq to do what? To turn around and pull out? What did we accomplish by actually going into Iraq?
No, right.
And Hector, I'll leave it. Throw it into Hector's court. As after 30 years, he's had multiple deployments. In 1990, 91, we put a foothold in the Middle East. We have never left. Something we were discussing about. We were still in Korea, Germany. I don't know if we're still in Germany or not, but we put footholds in, and we never want to leave. And we've had this foothold in the Middle East. What's up, Paul?
What was the last country we liberated?
We haven't liberated any country.
Thank you. We don't do that. That is not who we are.
Nor should we.
That's a marketing term, right? We're going to liberate the people of Kuwait. And in the summer of 91, how many of those people who testified in front of Congress found out to all be lies?
Right.
All the lies about shutting hospitals down, stealing babies out of incubators. Right. That was to get us to want to go. this is, to your point, this was how we were going to never leave.
And they've done that continuously for the past 35 years. And we are in the same situation.
Okay.
You know, what started off as a 3 week, operation, which, don't get me wrong, I'll support the president for what they call, but now we are 5 months into this, and there's no end in sight, which is really, that's, to me, that's really dismaying.
I'm piping over here. I want to be careful. We don't care. We don't. We're going to be over there forever. This was our excuse to get in. That's why we backed Saddam Hussein during Iran, because we wanted to back Iraq for 8 years, from 80 to 88. United States, we backed Iraq so we could have the foothold. Didn't work. Well, in July of 90, the secretary, or whatever it's called, the people who are the embassy,
ambassador
to Iraq, thank you, goes to George Bush and says, hey, Iraq is pissed because they got 8-year war debt. We're not helping them, and Kuwait's stealing their oil. W. Bush, hey, that's Arab on Arab. We want nothing to do with that. Middle of July. Invasion was August 2nd, 3rd. Hands off, and then boom, we never get out.
Right.
I think we let it happen. I think we let it out.
Right.